It looks like it's finally about to happen. The Premier League are set today to vote on whether or not to ban front of shirt gambling sponsorships. That is at least according to Martin Ziegler, the chief sports reporter at The Times, in a report today. This is a big deal. It's a big deal, and it comes under a lot of different contexts. There's a lot of things going on in the background with football right now, which make this probably bigger than it even seems, which is, quite a big deal on regulations on what you can and can't have on the front of shirts, right? And it's been rumbling for a long time. This isn't something that's just happened now. We've been expecting some form of decision for a little while with this. There are increasing amounts of competitions around the world that have already banned betting companies from basically sponsoring teams. Different leagues around the world have already done this, and it's always had a bit of pressure on the Premier League to follow suit. And I bring this to you, one, because it's an interesting topic, and two, because I kind of want to know your opinion. Because I think it's one of these topics where there is no black and white to it. There's a lot of different opinion in there that you can have. And I don't know entirely how I feel. So I sort of wanted to bring it to you and read the comments and see if I can form an opinion, because my gut reaction is that banning it is probably the correct thing to do. But at the same time, I can see lots of arguments for the other side. But what is actually happening? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hammer's Chat, by the way. I hope you're all well. I've come off the back of a massive cold. So if my nose looks really red, it's very sore. I'm sneezing non-stop, or at least I was yesterday. Today it's calmed down a bit, and my nose is bad. It's bad. But looking forward to West Ham being back to some extent. I don't know. I'm quite nervous about that as well. That's the weekend's problem. Today, however, there is a top flight shareholders meeting in which on the top of the agenda is a proposal which will see front of shirt sponsorships from betting firms being banned. An interesting thing about this is the placement, right? It's front of shirt, because apparently shirt sleeve sponsorships, that's fine. The only thing that's on the table here is getting rid of the big bit at the front that says Betway, or what's the one that Newcastle have? Is it called 8 Fun or something like that? Do you know what I mean? Those things, getting rid of those. Now, the report states that they may put this off until the shareholders meeting in June once the season has finished, but the belief is that enough clubs will back it if, and this is important, there is a 3-year transition put in place. An agreement that says, it's not like we do this, endless season, next season you need a different front shirt sponsorship. Because there are teams like us, for example, who have long-running deals. We'll get onto that, who have deals that are keep continuing. So some sort of transition in place, agreed, then it feels like enough clubs will back it. This probably is partly due to the fact that none of the Sky Sports top 6, as we like to call them, have shirt sponsorships that include betting companies, which means that realistically, you've got 6 off the bat. The 6 big clubs, they'll instantaneously agree to this because it doesn't really affect them. And this is one of the layers of this decision that needs to be thought about a lot and gives me some pause for thought. Because realistically, and this is something we've heard time and time again and something the report points out, betting companies represent the most lucrative deals. If you're a club and you're looking for a shirt sponsor, the chances are, if you rank them from most expensive to least expensive in terms of how much you're going to get in, most lucrative to least lucrative, betting companies are always at the top. So it makes sense that 8 out of the 20 Premier League clubs have a betting company on the front of their shirt sponsorship. And this is where it becomes difficult. Because if you're a top club, if you're one of the Sky Sports top 6 who have ridiculous amounts of income anyway, that doesn't matter. You don't need to go for a betting company, right? In those situations, betting companies might not even be the most expensive. Man United had Chevrolet for a while, which was a wild one, for example. I don't know why it's wild. In my head, it feels wild. But if you're a club who have just been promoted and this is a chance to make a lot of money, and let's be real, you need a lot of money to be able to compete in the Premier League. And if the timings line up and you get to, renew your shirt sponsorship or redo your shirt sponsorship as you come into the Premier League, the money that represents from a betting company could be massively beneficial to you in trying to keep yourselves in that top flight. We've seen clubs like Bournemouth who come into the Premier League who don't have a lot of money, who, drop straight back out again. There's a lot of examples there. And so if you are a club who need that money, it represents a lot. Not necessarily breaking the bank. I think the report says 5 to 10 million per year is sort of the average on where this lies out, which in the Premier League isn't necessarily make or break money. 5 or 10 million isn't going to change the world, but it isn't nothing, is it? It's not, that's a player, really. You could get it's a lower end player, but you could get to what, for 10 million? You could get 2 Southamptons for that. So that's not bad, is it? Really? But it's not going to break the bank if you're a Premier League club, which is also why this agreement apparently isn't involving EFL clubs. Because one of the other big contexts around this is, of course, the government. We've heard about the idea of an independent regulator from the government in control of football to some extent. In England, the idea of looking at club ownership and the way things are run, because it's a bit of a lawless state that they don't really have any control over. And we've seen reactions, it's fair to say, on both sides. Mostly from the clubs, it's been a negative thing. They don't feel like they need some sort of independent regulator involved. But that is, of course, rumbling on in the background of something that might happen, and the government want to be seen to be doing stuff in the wake of the, what was it called? The European Super League. They want to be seen to be making sure football can't be taken away from fans, is the emotive way they put it. Probably a bit bollocks, but, that's the way they word it. And on top of that, there is a white paper expected next month from the government on gambling. And ministers have indicated that if shirt sponsorships of betting companies go away, then it won't be included in the government's suggestions and new rules and everything else that comes out in this white paper, right? The one thing that will come out is that EFL clubs will be excluded from this. This is only a Premier League issue. This isn't anyone from Championship below. They can still have betting companies on the front of their shirts, specifically because it is so financially important to them. Getting rid of those, again, because they are the most lucrative, would ruin a lot of those clubs and would kind of get rid of the point of independent regulator and all this other sort of stuff in general. If you just roll up and just go, right, no shirt sponsorships for anyone in EFL, and then 3, 4, 5 clubs go out of business, well, what's the point in the first place? Your entire point is to stop that from happening. It's to stop fundamental changes to the game so fans continue to have clubs and football to support and everything else. So it doesn't include EFL. Which raises another question. What happens if, for example, a club from the Championship has a betting sponsor and they get promoted into the Premier League? Do they then have to get rid of it? Is there then a 3-year amnesty on leaving it? There's a lot of intricacies to this which make it not as simple as it first seems. Like I said, realistically, Premier League clubs don't need the money. So you could make an argument that it's not that deep. And if we are to think about our own club, for example, with Betway, it's the most lucrative shirt sponsorship we've ever had. It was a big deal was made out of it when we originally signed it in 2015, I think it was. It was either it was the last season at Bowling, wasn't it? It was a big deal that it was the most lucrative it had ever been. It was a shirt sponsor that was going on the front for the last season. There was a lot of interest in it. So we earned a lot of money from it. And we continued to re-sign that deal. I think it was in 2019 where we signed a 6-year deal, I believe it is, which means we have a couple of years left. Which makes sense why there is this transition period for clubs like us who have deals that aren't coming to an end this season. It's coming to an end in a couple of seasons' time, that we don't just rip up the contract, because what the hell happens then? There needs to be something in place. However, if you listen to Kieran Maguire, for example, who I believe was quoted on Football Insider. I read this last night as I was falling asleep, so I might be wrong about that. But I think it was Football Insider who did an interview with Kieran Maguire, who said that West Ham are likely to be able to find quite a good shirt sponsorship anyway. There's a lot of different things where if you are a Premier League club, you can probably get a good shirt sponsor that isn't betting, that maybe an EFL club can't. Increase revenue, increase viewing figures. You're facing big clubs, you're going to be on telly frequently, all that stuff. And for a club like West Ham, who we'll see next season whether we're in Europe or not, but are battling for Europe and certainly are Europe, that's again a whole bunch of extra games. But we've seen again, when playing in Europe, there are some places you can't have betting sponsorships on the front of your shirts. So it's a big, complicated topic. And I feel like, from my point of view, of someone who doesn't fully understand certain aspects of it, for example, there is this idea that there is a murkiness in terms of ownership of betting companies and licensing that I don't fully get. They're talking about Isle of Man companies and all of this sort of stuff. And as a former accountant, I could probably get my head around it if I tried. But realistically, I'm tired. We're all having a bad season. I can't be asked to start thinking about licensing deals and all this sort of nonsense. There's this aspect to it. And as a lazy person, I would quite like that to all be simplified. However, on top of it, there is the thing about the kids. It gets brought up a lot in these sort of conversations, which probably, feels right. You shouldn't have betting companies advertising to kids. There's a lot of rules and regulations about what you can and can't advertise to kids. There's a lot of, a great example of that, when there was a Betway thing last year, wasn't there? They got fined, I think it was 400 grand, because they had a link. I think it was, basically on the West Ham website, the Betway thing is there. You can always click it. There was a page which was you could print out, which was colouring in for kids of Bubbles the Bear. And there was a big Betway logo on it that you could click and go to the betting site. They got fined for that. And interestingly, about rules and regulations around this space, Betway were the ones who got fined for it. It wasn't West Ham. Despite the fact that feels like West Ham's fault. That definitely feels like a West Ham problem as opposed to a Betway problem. They're responsible for these sort of things when it comes to children, right? And so this idea of protecting kids always comes up and is a big part of this. It might not be necessarily being said instantaneously at the forefront, but it is also a background of this. And so my gut says that it is probably correct. And this is where I come to you and I ask. My gut says that it probably is correct to ban betting sponsorships on the front of shirts, Also, low key, the kids ones without it look better, in my opinion. You know what I mean? We can get a shirt without it. I think that it's probably for the best, for Premier League clubs specifically. But also, if it's just front of shirt sponsorships, is there a point? If Betway's not here, but it is here, it is on hoardings, it is literally everywhere else surrounding you, it is on the website, it is here, it is there. It's not like kids are typing in WHUFC.com and are only looking at the bit with the colouring in page. No, of course not. They go to the homepage, they see Betway, they see pictures of the players wearing Betway. It feels slightly superfluous to some extent to just get rid of front of shirt sponsorships. But it's also the most prominent thing. When kids buy stickers, for example, you get, your Panini albums or whatever. You go and you buy stickers from the shop or your cards, your trading cards or whatever you're buying at the moment. I don't know. I'm almost 30. I don't know what the kids do. But you know what I mean? It's just betting all over that. It feels like it probably is best to get rid of it. I don't know. How do you feel? Because like I say, I feel like there are so many different aspects to this that make it sort of debatable. I'd probably come down on the side of banning them. It feels the right thing to do, but at the same time, I don't know. How do you feel? Let me know in the comment section below. And make sure you subscribe if you are new around here and hit that bell notification button, because we have plenty of stuff coming up, including match day things, ladies and gentlemen, where Premier League is back after an international break. Declan Rice scored. Wasn't that fun? And we'll be back in full swing with that kind of stuff as well. Match day videos incoming. So make sure you don't want to miss out on any of those. And like the video, because it helps us out massively. Pushes up in algorithms. You know how all that stuff works. I mean, you probably don't, because we don't entirely understand it, but you hit the button and then we're more likely for people to click on the videos or something. YouTube is one of those things. You please a computer and you hope for the best. But I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying your international break, and we'll be back properly soon. So make sure to get involved. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Come on, you irons, and I'll see you later. I'll see you for the watch along properly. See you later, everyone. Bye. Bye.